Thanks for staying on. I'm Seher Zama. We're continuing with the urban debate and our second topic of discussion tonight on what our government, our central government, has done today. They've heard the plight of the women of our country, and in a major step, today India has become only the 9th country in the world to release the National Registry of Sex Offenders. As you're aware, we at Mirror Now have been pushing for this long enough. We thank the government for this, but we're once again looking at the next step on how this is going to work on ground. Crucially, how can it be effective to reduce the crime against women? Has the government fallen short of making this data accessible to public as well? So far, it's not. We're going to be discussing all of that in this 1 hour.
Massive Mirror Now campaign impact. In a first, the centre has released a national registry of sex offenders. Now, India is the 9th country that maintains such a database.
And we're looking at a national database where DNA samples, Aadhaar card numbers, names, photo IDs and registration numbers will be logged in. This will help investigation with various states.
India has welcomed the move, but unlike in other countries, this registry will not be made public.
इतने सारे sexual assaults होते हैं, and if government is able to do something about it, it would be really helpful for us.
जो गलत काम करते हैं उनका तो लगना ही चाहिए ना.
The public needs to be aware of who the offenders are.
ये जो सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट करते हैं वो सही है. हमारा सबके लिए लिस्ट जरूरी है.
I'm very glad that finally the government of India is coming out with this National Sex Offenders Registry. I think it is a welcome step.
As India takes a giant leap towards crime prevention, Mirror Now asks, should the government make the database public?
Let's discuss this now. We have Anila Singh, spokesperson of the BJP, Dhanraj Vanzari, former ACP Mumbai, Yogita Bhayana, social activist, Pallavi Sharma, lawyer of the Supreme Court, Dr. Purnima Advani, former chairperson of the NCW, Karuna Nandi, lawyer of the Supreme Court. Let's straight go ahead to Anila Singh. Anila, this of course coming in on a huge thank you note as far as the government of India is concerned. Activists for the past several years across the country have been asking for this, and the government has heard our voice. Mirror Now has itself been pushing for this for the longest time that we can know. But the question also being on how this is going to be workable on ground, to have each agency kept in the loop of this register to raise a red flag when it matters.
Absolutely. To start with, I think it is I can say it is a welcome step from the government of Narendra Modi ji that this site has been launched, where the case where the sexual offenders will be registered and a database will be made for them. And I thank your channel as well, because as usual you have always stood very strongly with the issues of women. And this is one, I can say this is one step, one more step regarding the security and the safety of the women, which Modi government is very serious about. And let's hope that it is going to help in marking these sexual offenders, and it will help us in solving the cases, because conviction rate is very poor in our country. So I am taking it in a very positive manner, and as you mentioned earlier also, about 9 countries they have got such database with them, and only US, I suppose, has made this database for public, but the rest others are provided to investigative agencies only. So definitely this is one more step towards the security of women, and let's hope for the best.
All right, Mr. Vanzari, should we only at this point be hoping for the best, or rather be more sure of it working on ground?
Yes, definitely. At the outset, I would like to congratulate and pay my very sincere thanks to both, that is Government of India and Mirror Now. Mirror Now is the only channel I remember who has consistently and persistently taken the issue, and it's made a sort of a pressure through a public voice, and it has brought this kind of a positive and pragmatic step in the democratic constitutional setup. Now, as per the implementation and what more further amenities would be blocked, what rights would be curbed, what kind of implementation we are going to do it, that will depend the success, ultimate success of today's pragmatic step taken by the government. For that purpose, I think 8 other countries in the world who have done it, we have to study their social structure, their customary conventional things, and what way they are going successful, and considering our geography and cultural situation, accordingly we have to mold our things in such fashion that this step of the government gets immense success. If it is not getting success, then again it will be hunting around the bush and will be at the center point, not moving further. So let the time pass, and time would be the test in this matter.
Right. Yogita, what are the larger concerns as far as this not falling back on being called yet another arbitrary step to make this workable, to have agencies in the loop, up to date with this registry, to the extent that it helps the public, it helps the women of the country?
Seher, as other laws, I am only worried about, this is a one step further we have moved, but this is not the only step we should stop at, and I'm only worried about the implementation, as Mr. Bhanjari also said that, how effectively they are going to use this data. Any which ways they are supposed to maintain a database of criminals, sexual offenders, but do they really cross-check after they are released from the court? They don't keep a track on them. So, however, there is a poor implementation there itself. How we are going to make sure that definitely they are repeat offenders. It was much needed move, but whether they are who will going to keep a track? I mean, you are linking it with the technology, but actually there are humans required to implement it. So police and all, they are already overworked. When you go to them with a complaint, they say we are already busy. So who is going? We need a single agency to do that. Maybe that will solve the problem. Not only just merely declaring a change will not help it. You need to have an effective agency rather, to run it. Otherwise, it's just another eyewash, because the rape is something which really need attention, and the sexual offense really needs a lot of other aspects to it. So, as I said, positive move, but needs a lot of effectiveness in using.
Right. Pallavi Sharma, would you agree with that? There is still a lot of infrastructure that is required to be built here on this. Questions about who's to scrutinize this list, who's going to be updating it, cross-checking, correlating information that comes in from regarding one particular offender from different parts of the country. All of that.
Seher, I'd just like to borrow 2 quick minutes from you, because I think I'm the only panelist here who's opposing this registers. So just 2 quick minutes to put my points forward, and then maybe once the panelists oppose it, I can walk in with a different view from here. Okay, so first is, I think it's a very knee-jerk and a populist reaction that this government has come out with. So instead of, this recent hike that we've seen in offences against the women, I think the government, just in a garb to be populist, has come out with this. Second, why I say that it shouldn't happen. First, now, I think somebody from the BJP spokesperson, she just mentioned that the US and there are many other countries who practice this. There's the UK is there, US is there, there are other countries as well. Now, you went into that part. Did you also do research on whether these registers are helping lower down the crime rate against women? Because I think that is the agenda that we're trying to meet here. At the end of it, I think all of us want that the crime, the sexual crime against women should reach a low level, right? So did they do a research? Because as far as I know, what the US research says is that this has not helped in lowering down the rate of sexual offences. Right. My second point is there was a data released by NCRB in February 2018, earlier this year itself, and it said that recidivism is only 6.4%. So to put it out in a common man's language, that is the percentage at which offenders repeat, as in they become offenders, is only 6.4%. Whereas 94.6% of cases of sexual violence and rape included are the perpetrators of rape are people that are known to the victim. Right. Now my question is, we already see that in such cases where the victim knows the perpetrator of rape, right? He's a family member or an acquaintance or whatever. The reportage is very low.
Right.
Right? There's no disputing that. Now once the reportage is already low in those cases, and then the family has the stigma that the it will be reported and the person will become an will be registered in the name will come out in the register and all of that. There are chances of the reported seeing a new low. Having said that, now my third important point why it shouldn't be there is, we recently saw lynching in the name of just suspicion of child kidnappers. Now this gives a new encouragement to it. Once people know that, see, these are the people, such situations are likely to see an increase. So I just want to know from the government, did you do any background research on all these points? And also, you see, once a person is registered in these registers, it's accessible to the public. Now suppose, for example, if I am one of them and I'm registered in that register, now I go out to look for employment.
This is but Pallavi, the government has made it very clear right now this is not accessible.
Yeah.
Right now, this registry is not going to be accessible to public. Okay, and out of all the 9 countries, including India, it is in the public domain only in the United States, not in any other country either.
Right. So then my other apprehension was, in case it becomes accessible to the public, if it's not accessible, then the government may answer the first few points I raised. Was there a proper research behind it? Does it show that once this register comes
out? All right, we got your point. Let's get in a very senior voice. Senior criminal lawyer, Mr. K.K. Manan with us on the phone line. Mr. Manan, there are apprehensions, of course, from yet another legal voice here raising the concern here that as far as violence against women goes, most of the offenders are first-timers. There are not repeat offenders. And does this registry, at the end of the day, having this huge database, how will it help to pull down crime against women in India?
I welcome this step. I told you in the daytime also that a practical view should be there. And somebody is just speaking, it was a theoretical, not a practical. Even otherwise, every criminal has a dossier in the police record, and after conviction, dossier used to be prepared by the prosecution branch, but it was not being published earlier. Now, if it will be published, but I will add one more thing, that not only convicted persons, even the persons who have been released on bail or are absconding in such type of offences, their name should also be put in the register and it should be published. And they should be naked in the eyes before the public. And these are the people who have ruined the society. You see how they behave. And 3 years child, 5 years child, 10 years child, 15 years child. Or another thing which is a new trend is going on for the last few years, that on the promise of a marriage also. It is not a few cases are false. But at the same time, I have come across few cases which are purely genuine cases where the person has promised to a girl, after gross abuse of that girl, abused subsequently. Such type of people also be put in the register if they are on bail or they are in custody. If they are in custody, meaning
all right. So widen the scope of this registry. Also have those accused who are out on bail, not just convicts. Of course, many there would be apprehension to even have accused, not just convicts here on this list. But Mr. Vanjari, would you agree with that point? And also further adding in on why the need to make this registry public. Why is there such a strong demand to have this registry public? How does that help us as a public?
I think we'll have to follow the US model in that context, and we should go for it because that is the only purpose. Whole nation is crying. The existing laws are not enough to curb this menace of rape or sexual offences. Then what is the message this database will give? When I say it is a pragmatic step taken by the government, there must be some concrete message. So this is the message that your data information would be public wherever you will go. Suppose even if you go to book a ticket online, there would be a message ki, gentlemen, remember you are in the database list of Registry of Government of India as a sexual offender. So let that message go to him. Actually, you tell me where is the detrimental effect. This will cause a detrimental effect, and as I said in earlier segment of mine, that we have to study it through our geography and cultural factor. As somebody has raised the issue that there will be a mass lynching and this and that, nowadays also lynching is happening to the innocent people. I am not justifying lynching of a criminal or the person who has been convicted. If at all such things happens or not, let the time testify this pragmatic move, and if accordingly we can make some changes, we can make some adequate changes in that implementation and the strategies further.
All right, Ms. Karuna Nandi, what is your view on that? Is it just about the purpose of this registry, not just only having every given agency in the loop as far as sexual offenders there are concerned, but also naming and shaming? But that doesn't happen anyway. You have a convict who are taken in by the police in black mass. None of them are identified anyway.
As someone who in this area sort of works primarily on the rights of victims of sexual offenders, I think that in sort of looking at this program, the way it's been rolled out, it's unfortunately at the moment it's absolutely not something that should be rolled out. It's something that should have been looked at as a pilot project. Now, if you look at sexual offender registries, for example, in the United States, Megan's Law is something that at the national level that they implemented, and the Department of Justice at that point said that it was completely dysfunctional. It did not work. Why is that? They said that the money of the government was going down the drain and made no sense for a number of reasons. Firstly, because there was no chance of reform, that these people were just essentially, it's that give a dog a bad name and hang him, right? Like after they had served out their sentences, they had no way of reforming. And so when you have no way of reforming, what happens? The likelihood that you will commit the crime again, I would think, would definitely go up. And that's a problem, because if you're labeled a sexual offender for life, then you might as well just do it again, right? That's one thing. The second thing is that you need to be evaluated every so often to see if you have that tendency to commit the crime again, or if you have reformed, or there's a right to appeal, which is not the case here. The third thing is that they have a 15-year period, so your name would be in the registry for 15 years or 20 years, depending on what category you are put in. The third thing, of course, is we don't have a proper right, we don't have a proper law on privacy. We have a right to privacy, and that's a constitutional right, but we don't have a law on privacy, and there are no penalties, as far as I can see, in leaking the names of these people, even though the right to know their names is more limited than, say, in the US. And so all in all, and and I think the thing which is of greatest concern is that the people who really get convicted are not the people who commit the most rapes. So why do I say that? If you look at marital rape, for example, the case that we're currently fighting in the Delhi High Court, 94% of rapes that happen, there's some data that some very reliable data that says that happens in the context of marriage. Now, this is entirely legal. Now, look at the rest of the rapes. The rapes that happen otherwise, most of those rapes are by people who are known to the offender, right? Now, those are much harder to
all right.
Even complain against and go to trial against and obtain conviction against. And so, who do you get? You get a lot
and
of
there's
Dalits,
social taboo involved there as well. That's right, Karuna. That's a very similar point here that was raised by Pallavi as well. But let's get it. Let's also get in more voices. Dr. Purnima Advani, former chairperson of the NCW, with us as well. Dr. Purnima Advani, in your view, how is this going to be helping on ground? Because for the longest time, of course, we've been asking for the government to do this. And now that they've done it, we're criticizing, some voices saying that it's a knee-jerk reaction, it's a populist move. Why is that?
I would not call it a populist move. On the contrary, I commend the government for having taken this step. The reason I say this is because anything that helps the investigation and the law enforcement agencies to determine at the earliest point of time who is the offender is welcome. And by keeping a clear database, in any case, we have a database of crimes in our country. This is a registry of sexual offenders, which would enable the investigating agencies and the law enforcement agencies. Populism would come in only if the government wanted to make it public and was immediately going out to make it public. It has been clarified, I think, very clearly. Therefore, to have apprehensions that I say this because in case the government, I don't think that's the point today. We can't go on assumptions and presumptions. As it stands today, it is not for public consumption. It is to enable the law enforcement agency. It is to enable a quick investigation and to facilitate a time-bound investigation in case of crimes against women. And that time-bound investigation is what will be the deterrent. I also feel that we should not put out the names of, in this registry, of the accused or those on bail, because law is very clear that every guilty person is presumed to be innocent till he is proved to be guilty. And therefore, we cannot preempt the work of the courts. It is for the courts to, after the evidence is led, after the evidences are determined, after the trial is over, for the court to decide on whether he was an accused, whether the accused was guilty or not. And if he is an offender, then then the registry would contain his name. So it is, I think we are waiting for the
clarification. If once confirmed a convict by court, should the name go on the registry? That's right.
But confirmed as in, if it goes to the appellate forum, then again the appellate court would have to decide this. So it's only after confirmation that the person's name. So we are not dooming a person before required. We are not popular, it's not popularity or populism which is required. It is enabling, and whatever can enable the law enforcement agencies to ensure that crimes against women, the offenders should be booked at the earliest. That step is welcome. That's the short point that I wish to make.
Pallavi, would you like to respond to that? There is also a sense, and this coming in from Dr. Purnima Advani, that this would also help in fast-tracking cases. Would you agree with that?
Yes, see, Seher, like I earlier said, and I'll stick to my statement, that I think it is a very knee-jerk and populist reaction by the government. Now, why I say it, I just told you, see, 28 years this has been practiced in the US, and what does the US come out with? It says that it has only increased social cost and nothing else. Now my question was very simple to the government. Did you do any primary research and did you find out whether maintaining these registers actually help in lowering down the crime rate against women? Because I think at the end, this is the agenda that we are trying to meet. We want to lower down the crime rate against women, the sexual offences against women. So do you think maintaining such data would reduce that crime rate? Because an NCRB data in February 2018, I'm talking about a very recent data that was released by NCRB, said only 6.4% recidivism is seen. That is, only 6.4% of the people actually end up being sexual offenders. That is, they repeat the crime. And what about my second question that still remains unanswered is that we see 94.6% rapes are done by the perpetrators. The perpetrators are somebody who, just let me finish, are perpetrators who are known to the victim. And we already see there's a very underreporting on that. Now, once this register comes out, that underreporting is going to change into no reporting at all, because I think the pressure that a victim sees from her family members is immense. We've seen 84% victims actually turn hostile in the court because the perpetrator was known to them. Now, once this register comes out,
should we supposed are we supposed to be shooting it down? Because India is perhaps culturally different, faces a different set of social taboos in reporting these cases. Should the idea of this registry being released just be shot down just on that argument? Yogita?
Yeah, I just want to tell my friend Pallavi, any which ways we are not talking about the cases which are not surfacing, because we see that the cases which are happening within the four walls are any which ways not reported, and there is always the pressure. Okay, then in that case scrutiny is done. Any which ways we are only
let's talk about how this helps in fast tracking reported cases. If we could stick to that.
Seher, we are only talking about the convicted cases.
How would this help? How would this help? All right, Yogita, how is this going to help in fast tracking? Fast-tracking reported cases. Pallavi, you've made your...
Yes,
yeah, Yogita, go ahead.
Yes. Because once you are trialed and you are guilty, and then your name is on the repeat offenders, and trust me, sir, we have seen cases where I would not go, I am telling you with a lot of authenticity and working in the field, I am telling you around 90 to 95% people, they are repeat offenders. So definitely, yes, I am telling
that will be denying the NCRB data. No, the NCRB data says only 6.4%.
No, you're not talking about 6 point maybe. What you're talking about 6% of the people, but in that 6%, 94% are repeat offenders. I'm talking about the reported cases.
No, I'm saying 6.4% is recidivism. No. That is only 6.4% is.
I think we have to cross-check that, but they are.
Okay, so let's get in Mr. Vanjari, someone who would understand, former ACP Mumbai, Mr. Vanjari, someone who would understand the mind of a criminal.
Yes.
This is what Karuna had also raised, that if you're on the repeat offender list, if you're out, you would think that your name is on the list for another 15 years, for another 25 years, you would think you might as well repeat that offense. Is that right? Or does this work as a deterrent, which is what we've all been hoping for, which is what we've been pushing for this registry to be released, that this works as a deterrent?
Exactly, that is what I am telling, that this registry mechanism will create a sort of psychological pressure on the being offender. Now here, if we are discussing the registration of cases, reported and unreported cases, or bail-out cases, or the witnesses getting hostile, or the people are getting acquittal, I think there can be a separate discussion on this issue. Today we are on the mechanism of database creation for sexual offences has been established by government, and how it should be. I already said it must be based upon the research, and whatever result will come out of this mechanism, the time would be a testing factor, and it can be implemented as per the cultural, conventional, customary and geographical factors of federal and as well as the state government, where such kind of things are being encountering properly. So at this moment it would be totally irrelevant just to think that this is useless exercise, it will not help anybody. No, these registration cases will not help, conviction this thing will not help, or the witnesses will not help. There can be a separate issue. Now only thing is that
it is one step at a time, and we should be, while we in the same breath welcoming this step here by the government, also be working towards the next step. It is one step at a time.
Pallavi,
all right, we need to very quickly we need to take a viewer calling in. Mr. Vanjari, I'm going to come to you in just a bit. We have K. Vijay Raghavan from Bengaluru calling us. Please go ahead.
I'll be just making it quickly.
That's an argument for a pilot. That is not an argument to roll out a program without looking at the impact of it and destroying a large number of lives.
Absolutely.
You know, the argument that you're making, I think, is correct, but it's an argument for a pilot.
That is what I'm saying. It should have been a pilot study.
Okay, all right. Let's get in a view from our caller here as well.
Can I come in?
My voice is going through. Please go ahead. Absolutely. Anila, I'm going to come to you in just a bit. Yes, we can hear you. Please go ahead.
Okay, sir, I've been here listening to the discussion with the various panelists here now. Now, the point is that we are the 8th or 9th nation to have this sort of a data registry on a nationwide basis. Some of the objections given by anybody, or maybe including some of the panelists right now talking to you, saying that it could be indicating to a violation of the personal rights or a democratic way. But there is nothing to do with it. Anybody who is accused of a sexual abuse, it should be registered. Whether it's acquitted or not, it should also come in the database. So if an A convicted of
okay, so of course you're also asking whether acquitted or convicted, but there is a sense that those who are accused, not convicted, should not be on this list. Anila Singh, you wanted to come in, and all the criticism here that has come in as far as this registry is concerned, one being there has to be access to public on this. Anila.
Seher, it is so sad to see that couple of our co-panelists, female co-panelists, are talking so pessimistically about NDSO step which has been taken by the present government. Any step taken regarding the security and the safety of women should be welcomed. Now they are doing post-mortem of NDSO. I really fail to understand what is the intention behind. It seems is just to criticize the government. Any step taken according to them. Kindly let me please. I was not interfering any of it.
Right. Right, no, Anila, the purpose of it, of course, being to make it workable best possible. Yeah, complete your point, Anila.
Any IPC regarding women trafficking,
Karuna, I'll come to you in just a bit.
Sexual assault, acid attacks, honor killing, we shouldn't have any IPC because these criminal cases are happening. So a step has been taken by the government, we should welcome it, and let us see how it unfolds in the future. Instead of sitting and criticizing it, I really fail to understand. You two are women and still you are criticizing it as if government has done.
Please let me respond. I'll just take 10 seconds.
You might be giving example of the these
Anila, there's also a sense as far as making
this was not successful there.
Okay. As far as this registry being having access to public is, there is a sense here, Anila, that at least public access to child sex offenders, those names should be available for protecting children's rights. Is the government willing to make that exception as far as child offenders here are concerned?
Can she hear us? Yeah.
Today, first step has been taken. NDSO has been launched. And what you are saying that it might, I'm not denying this, it might happen in the future. But it is really sad to see that a couple of the ladies sitting on the panel and they are criticizing it in and out. This shows that they're criticizing just for the sake of criticizing the matter. Can they deny this fact that the brutal sexual assault in India has increased? As a woman, I'm saying, and I'm really ashamed about it. But it is the hard reality which we are facing. Narendra Modi ji, he is the person who has
policy conversations, madam, without you feeling
again he is,
Sir, please let me respond. I'll just take 10 quick seconds.
No, but Anila, we must understand at the end of the day, each of our concern, even if it is criticism, there's no intention for this criticism to be personally hurtful, Anila. At the end of the day, the larger concern is to make this registry work for the purpose of which it has been released, which is why you have some legal voices there saying on how can this best work on ground.
Let us see how it is going to work in the future.
Can I comment?
Right. Poonam Advani, yes, you wanted to comment.
10 quick seconds, please. Just 10 quick seconds.
No. We're going to have Poonam Advani, please. Pallavi, coming to you
about the whole thing
in
was
2 minutes.
Has the government done? The lady who had a negative view was saying, has the government done its research about whether or not the data, this kind of a register has helped in reducing of crimes? Now, this data keeping is something which is a very sensitive issue. On the one hand, women were not willing to go and register. And when we look at the larger body of women, it is women in the rural India. They were just not wanting to register. With more and more empowerment of women coming in, they are willing now. There is a larger population of women who are willing to go and register. And therefore, this data of sexual offenders, which could facilitate law enforcement agencies and investigators, has nothing to do with the confidence. In fact, the quicker the investigation, the more the confidence the woman will have that there is somebody to listen to her voice and that something is happening. Otherwise, women are losing faith in the law enforcement machinery, saying that, well, what do I go and do? If I go and register, I'm going to be looked upon by the society as if I'm an offender, and then the person who's the offender is just free at large and the investigator is doing nothing. There was a time when it was extremely difficult to lodge even the FIRs. Today, FIRs are being filed. I wish it's more facilitated by the government. I feel sometime even online registry of FIRs should be there. This is a point which can, of course, be further debated. I don't want to deroot the debate. But currently, I feel that whatever be the clarity being brought in, so long as it is not populism, simple populism as in making it public and making even accused persons' names there, it is being done very responsibly. Those who have been convicted, their register is there, and register is available to the persons whom it should be made available. It is intended to facilitate law enforcement agencies. Let us see what is the result. We want women to have confidence that their voice is going to be heard at the right agency. We don't want them to feel frustrated that we go, we put our life at stake, and we go and register a case and nothing happens. That is a worse situation for a woman. And I hope that even if the numbers today seem more, but there should be more women who have been offended. They should be willing to come ahead. That should not be sabotaged. Earlier, that was being. And therefore, numbers is something I look upon very, very carefully, because sometimes we feel it is more of offense. It could be more of reporting also that could bring in the numbers. And therefore, merely that these are things which have to be carefully researched into. Therefore, merely to state that data has come, now the numbers should go down, I don't think that is the right approach. I hope I'm clear in the point I'm making.
All right. Very, very eloquently put there. But Karuna, would you like to respond to that in entirely shooting this down and saying that this is a wasted exercise? This is wasting public money. Even if it works to begin with as a confidence building measure to register, to step out and get that FIR registered, and then in turn see this working towards a fast track court stepping in here on this as well, even if it works as a confidence building measure for women stepping out.
Except it doesn't. So, you know, the goals that Ms. Advani is articulating are goals that we all share. We all wish for more women, more children, whether it's girls or boys, to come and, you know, complain about sexual offences against them. However, what she is saying is going to gain women's confidence. This National Sexual Offenders Registry would only come in after the conviction. A conviction is something that in any case would build confidence. We are all seeking convictions that are swift and that are certain in such offences. But this only comes in after. So I don't see how this would be a confidence building measure at all. Firstly. Secondly, you know, this sort of approach that let us do it and then we shall see is an approach that you take with pilot projects, which is why actually, and this is, you know, to address what Anila Singh is saying, I actually think that this is a good idea as a pilot project. So I think Rajnath Singh ji was right to bring it out, but was absolutely wrong to bring it out in, you know, across the country. One appreciates the initiative in doing, you know, in sort of having thoughts and taking some measures, but it should absolutely only have been a pilot project, because the trouble now is that the kind of damage that this sort of registry in this form will wreak is massive, right? And I think that's very important, because look, feminism is nothing if not fair.
What is the damage? What is the damage that you're talking about here?
And when you think about fairness and when you...
No, what is the damage that you're talking about here?
Damages, right? Like we're looking at, for example, we don't have, there's no penalty as far as I can see to disclosing the data. And so when you have somebody's address, or when you have somebody's name, and when you have somebody's personal details that are disclosed, and when their family can be tracked down, you know, the entire family's lives can and are very frequently destroyed. So for example, if you look at the family of the Nirbhaya rapist, right? Now the family's lives have pretty much been destroyed. He, of course, deserves to go to jail. There are some believe that he deserves the death penalty. I don't believe in the death penalty. But the families' lives will also be destroyed and have been destroyed,
Okay.
right? In terms of recidivism, whether or not, say you are not somebody who, say you fall in that large percentage of people who commit a crime, pay their dues, say you're in jail for 20 years and then you are released, and say you are not somebody who will commit that crime again, right? Are you going to be tarred and feathered and be paraded?
No, but you do have the outer limit of 25 years already, after which your name could be withdrawn from that registry. Let's get in a viewer calling in. Sunanda Kashyap from New Delhi. Please go
there's
ahead.
the outer limit. No, but that's after. But it depends on where that time limit starts from. A. B. You also have a situation.
Okay, all right. We got your point. Sunanda, our viewer calling in. Please go ahead.
Arrested and charged.
Sunanda, if my voice is going through, please go ahead.
Yeah, hi. This is Sunanda from New Delhi. We recently initiated a campaign called Nahi Means No. And I have to say that I don't really understand what the problem is with this registry going public. Because one would think that by naming a state a sexual assaulter or someone who's a rapist, you be deterring future rapists. These are already people who've been convicted, and we also know that 90% of the incidences that happen are like through known people. But if you want to tackle that, that's a different sort of attitude. You need to empower women. You need to educate women. You need to teach them to speak out. But a database like this cannot, cause any harm, because this will deter any future criminal. And yes, okay, understand what, I'm sorry, I don't know what the lady's name is, but I understand what she was saying about the family.
All right. Okay, we get your point. Once again, the issue being raised and of course going public with this registry. Mr. Vanjari, questions then being asked with suspicion on whom you're trying to protect then, if you don't make this list public.
Yes, that is the main thing. I request my fellow panelists, I am a minority community today on the panel, so let me complete my point. My only point in last segment has left is that what happened in America. The America, when initially established this database of sexual offenders mechanism, it was not made public. Then what went wrong with their social structure and where their system of criminal jurisprudence, so that American society and thereby the American government has to made it to go for public. Now our socio-cultural system is different than the US socio-cultural difference. So we need to consider some time limit and to see, wait and watch what kind of effects this database will create, and if required, we will extend it even to the persons in whose name FIR is registered, even to the persons who has seek the bail from court of law, under trials, convicted, even acquitted person. So these should be steps to be followed in furtherance of this particular mechanism. Now, as regards to the sexual offenders, there are many things, including from unjust behavior up to the outraging modesty and committing rape and passing some ill comments, all will be covered under this sexual offenders, such a big canvas. Now, we have to see whether we can segregate such canvas. As Purnima ji has rightly been placed, because I know she has conducted some raids in the red light area in Mumbai. I was the assisting police officer then working in the department. So it is not totally correct to say that government has not made any research and government has not having any data before going at this. Yes, definitely government did it on the proper adequate research data, but still we have to go ahead further. Remember, this is a pragmatic democracy. At one moment we cannot include all the thrashing judgments and the decisions. We have to make a progress step by step. It's a pragmatic democracy once again.
All right, Anila, last question here to you. We've seen how even as far as crime records go, not sexual offences, other crime records, sometimes agencies have a difficulty in correlating with information or being kept in the loop. There are people who manage to scoot from the country by looting our banks with major agencies not having been kept in the loop on who's to be given a red corner notice, who's to be detained while leaving the country. All of that has already happened before us. So we're hoping that information that lies in this registry is going to be checked with concerned agencies equally across the board, to be kept in the loop, to be raising those red flags when it really matters.
I'm hopeful, Seher. Today a step has been taken in a very positive way, and it is a good day for the women. We should not criticize it, and definitely Ms. Advani and our ACP Sahab, both of them, and even Yogita, they all have explained it in a very well manner. And if you talk, like a couple of our panelists, they were talking about the social cost, especially like if I talk about the Karunaji and Pallavi, both of them, they were talking about social cost. So let us not discuss about the social cost when we talk about the women's safety and security. Social cost is going on so many projects in our country, and I think in today's date, security for women is it should be taken on the priority, and the government has taken it on the priority. That is why today NDSO has been unveiled, and let us hope for the best, and we should think in a positive manner rather than in a pessimistic way. Yes, criticization is welcome, but we should not declare that it is not going to be successful.
All right, we'll have to leave it at that. Appreciate all those voices here that have come in. Of course, the larger concern, even for the criticism here that came in, was only that it's not yet another step that should be seen as a knee-jerk reaction by the government. It hasn't been. There's been much thought that has gone into this, of course, for a long-standing demand of women's rights activists to have this registry available. The next step, of course, the expectation that this be made public as well, and that it doesn't in fact fall into that trap of arbitrariness. The next step would be once again to encourage fast-track courts, to encourage speedy investigations on these sensitive issues of crime against women that are reported on a daily basis, in our country. The government has woken up to some of the most horrifying cases, particularly against minors, that we've seen through the year 2018, and the government has woken up well in time on this. Many thanks for being with us.